Thank you, Vice Chairman. I appreciate the question. As you know, I've addressed every issue in pretty detail. Letter, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. As you stated,
야, 실망 소진다, 야, 유튜브. 공개 설정을 일부 공개를 해서 그 에러가 뜬 거야. 그러게, 안 보고 사진 깐 거네. 그러게, 공개 설정을, 공개를 안 해놔서 실망 소진 안 되고 있었던 거야. 이거 짜파게티가 아니라 뭐라고? 스파게티? 스파게티 매운 저기야. 라면이 아니야.
뭐야, 너 미친. 그냥 먹어야 될까요?
야, 월드컵 단식 4강이란다, 야.
여기서 보이는 거 이거구나. 해보겠구나. 네네네네.
한이 애기 엄마 한이 애기가 많이 컸어? 잘 컸어. 서울대학교 쪽에 갔을 때 그때 한번 지나가는 거 봤는데 연주에 쓰나 바이올린? 첼로? 뭐지? 나이 잘못된 생각인가? 야, 유혹이란다. 유혹. 야, 그거 한색 꿈인가? 뭔가. 야, 아시나?
Missile availability today. And at rates that were alarming. And what about our ability to respond to those? We have very good defensive capabilities, but it takes time for us to build our defensive capabilities. Were they building their offensive capabilities while they were negotiating with us at a faster rate than we could build defensive capabilities? Yes. Were they continuing to work at and deliver additional resources?
음악하고 악사 가사가 나온다? 가사가 나왔어.
So in other words, while they were
노래를
supposedly
부르고 있어요.
diplomatically working with us during that entire time,
야, 세상에 공짜가 없는데
with regard to their nuclear
기분이
intentions,
테크미
they were building additional missile
초콜릿
systems to deliver
그거 예약을 시간을 다시 하는데
to threaten their neighbors.
맛있게 먹고 있는데
Their defensive capabilities were going to be increased, making our young men and women at risk when at some point in the future we would have to basically
그래서 소울 파티 정책 위반으로 또 따르지 말고 그러는 거 아니겠어? 이 세상은 이렇게 살고 저렇게 살면서 있는데 넌 어떻게 살고 있냐? 난 밥 먹어야 돼. 나에게 일자리 달라 그러면 수 있는 건데 쉽지가 않지?
I agree with that. Thank you. I think the president made the right choice. It is never a good time for a war. But at some point you've got to
그래서 가진 자와 갖지 못한 자의 차이가 있는 거야. 그래도 열심히 잘 살아가야 돼. 성령 칭 말씀 받더라 하나님 말씀 받더라 또 잘 살아가야 그런 거 아니겠어? 그래서 성경을 잘 알고 교회를 잘 다니면서 계속해서 교회에서 하나님 말씀을 잘 들어라 이런 식이겠지.
individuals who are within the agency and within state departments that have actually had significant illnesses, some attributed, they believe, to outside sources. I don't think we have been able to, in an unclassified setting, at least acknowledge
그래서 오늘은 저기
these issues
거시기
seriously.
한의 라이브를 보고 있어요.
To assure the people of the State
그러게 오랜만에
Department
보고
and
있는데.
your agency that this is not something which is being ignored.
Thanks for the question. I
왜
appreciate
보고 있는지
the
몰라
opportunity
그냥
to address
들어봤어.
that. Yes, so be careful about what we can say. We'll go into further detail in the classified session.
그냥 오늘은 반바지 핫팬티를 입고 나왔어. 일반적으로 청바지.
As you're aware, Senator,
저녁 때 많이 입는 청바지 입고 나왔어.
about what the cause of these AHIs may or may not be.
Otherwise known as Havana syndrome.
우로선 가슴골 좀 퍼인 둥그런 긴팔.
It could be the result of a directed energy weapon from a foreign adversary.
뭐든지 잘 소화하잖아. 당신의 인생 상담사. 아니 나의 뭐 아니?
Director Gabbard and I had a conversation.
열심히 달려보세요.
She agreed that she would undertake a comprehensive review of that issue across the IC to make sure that it is getting the attention that it deserves. And I know that she is undertaking that and will be able to brief you in further detail in the classified session.
Thank you. And one last thought, this is only a comment to General Hartman. Your time in service has been very, very special. Working with you on the Cyber Security Subcommittee, the Armed Services Committee, I commend you for everything you've done. You are truly a hero, and you have served your country very, very well. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here today to all of our witnesses. So for more than a decade, the United States has tried to make a pivot to Asia in its national defense strategy in order to confront significant threats from China. For years, administrations of both parties have identified China as a top threat facing our country and worked to build relationships across Asia and deter Chinese aggression. At the same time, we have bolstered our European allies and asked them to contribute more to their defense to deter Russia. Directors Gabbard and Ratcliffe, would you agree that China and Russia are our primary geopolitical rivals? Director Gabbard.
Yes, they are our primary strategic
Thank you. Director Ratcliffe, I would agree with that, although I don't think they're equal in terms of the threats that understand. Thank you. So that brings us to the war with Iran. So this has created one of the largest ever supply shocks for the global oil supply, which has sent gas prices skyrocketing for Americans. But not everybody is losing. Directors Gabbard and Ratcliffe, is it accurate that Russia has gained billions of dollars in additional oil revenue due to price spikes as a result of the war and loosened sanctions?
야, 매운맛이야. 맛있다, 야.
That is what has been reported. I defer to the Director of Secretary of Treasury and details.
Director Rex, not uncommon. It's not going to try and do those calculations. But as I talked about earlier, sometimes there are decisions made that will benefit adversaries at the same time policymakers think that it will benefit the American people.
Clear, I think we'd all agree that sanctions were loosened, and that means more money into the coffers.
네, 안녕히 계셨습니다. 어떻게 하시겠습니까? 매일 30km를 걸어.
Funding, he is likely to put that to his war effort against Ukraine. Director Gabbard.
I would defer to an actual intelligence assessment on what they would believe his intentions are.
Director Ratcliffe?
Yeah, I wouldn't speculate on
You
that.
wouldn't speculate? Okay. Okay. And is it accurate that China is continuing to receive preferential oil flows from Iran despite the conflict as Iran allows its own tankers to transit the strait?
감격의 순간에 함께 해주셔서
Director
감사합니다.
Gabbard, I'm going to go back and forth between the two of you.
There has been some reporting of China, India, and other countries being able to move their tankers through the strait. However, it is unclear the volume or the measure of that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's accurate. Thank you. I'm going to move on. Director Gabbard, you tweeted yesterday that President Trump concluded there was an imminent threat and made a decision to attack Iran after carefully reviewing all of the information before him. I think the country deserves to know what the information was. I'm going to ask a series of questions and just want a yes or no. We don't need any explanation, just yes or no, starting with, were you asked, I'm not asking if you did brief this, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm not going to comment on what the president did or didn't ask me on any topic.
I'm not asking if you briefed it. I'm just asking if there was a request
I understand.
by the White House. Director Ratcliffe, were you asked to brief on whether Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz?
The briefings to the president of the White House typically don't come at the request of the White House. So typically when we get intelligence that we want the president to be aware of, the intelligence community brings that to the president.
Did you produce the analysis for the Straits of Hormuz?
There has been and continues to be analysis with respect to that.
Were you asked to brief on how our adversaries and allies would respond to the war in Iran? I imagine I'll get the same answer. So it's just to point out here, it's challenging to forget about actually what was in the brief for a second. We're having a hard time finding out not only if you briefed the president on something, but even if the White House asked if they could be briefed on something or if analysis was produced. So I just want to point out here, this is about 6 days.
Can I comment on
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
I go back to the point. It's the same approach that we took to the prior operations, which to your credit, Senator,
야, 근데 저기야, 오랜 시간 동안 하네.
intelligence
이제
and
이제
military
힘들겠다.
communities in Operation
나
Midnight
젊어서 그런 거지.
and Operation Absolute Resolve. It's the same approach and the same professionals in terms of how they approach this
So
particular
we're trying to figure out if the president knew what the downside was of the Strait of Hormuz being closed. And I'm having a hard time finding out whether the White House asked or whether there was a brief, whether the president knew. Did he know this was going to happen, or did he just disregard it? And I just want to point out something that was released about 6 days ago. This is a fundraising email from the president of the United States. And in this email here, where there's multiple links to donate money, it says, as a national security briefing member, you'll receive my private national security briefings. Director Gabbard or Director Radcliffe, do you think the public should be able to, supporters of the president should be able to pay and receive his private national security briefings? I assume these are briefings, Director Radcliffe, that you provide to the president that is now going to be provided to somebody who makes a
regardless
donation.
of what that I don't know what that document is, but regardless of what it says, it didn't happen.
Oh, no, this is new.
But what I'm telling you is that the Hatch Act would prevent me from an apolitical role from engaging in that. I'm not aware that anything like that happened.
Yeah, this says unfiltered updates. So, Director Gabbard, do you have any comment on whether unfiltered updates of private national security briefings should be made to individuals that donate to the president?
I'm not familiar with that document, and
It's been made very public 6 days ago. We'll get you a copy here because I agree with you, Director Ratcliffe, that the Hatch Act should prohibit this type of conduct. Thank you.
Senator Langford joins us from what I gather is a very exciting confirmation hearing for Senator Mullen.
It is, actually. For all of you, thank you. Thank you for the time that you give to the country to be able to serve, for your families and the sacrifice that you make to be able to do this, and all the professionals that work around you. Please pass on our gratitude to them because they work incredibly hard and difficult tasks in this. I want to talk about something that's a little closer to home on this. A lot of Oklahomans that I talk to, and quite frankly, folks even outside the state on it, when they think about threats, they, as strange as this may sound to those of us that deal with missiles and ballistics, they think about the threat to their family and to their income and to who they are. And a lot of it is international scammers that are now reaching into the United States to be able to gather data or to be able to steal money from them. AI has accelerated this dramatically, and I know the Worldwide Threats has mentioned this and some of the challenges that we face on it. But the challenge is getting bigger. FBI had noted that in 2024, it was almost $17 billion that was assumed lost to scammers, a lot of those internationals. Some estimates are as high as $50 billion on it. AI continues to be able to accelerate the capabilities on it. OpenAI even noted now that they're putting online ads saying, if you've been scammed, here's a way to recover your money. And that is actually a scam. It's taking them to a fake FBI page where they can then turn in and to say, if you've been scammed, here's how the FBI is going to actually come help you to recover it. But even that page is fake, and they're going to be able to steal their information. This is accelerating at a pace that's pretty dramatic with the use of AI on this. Director Patel, I know that you guys are on it. I know that there's multiple entities on it, but this is a big challenge. And a lot of Americans are very, very concerned about the threat to their families. They may have their parents that are more vulnerable at this time and being targeted. How do we take some of this on to be able to confront what's happening online, to be able to attack people and to be able to scam them?
Thank you, Senator. And it's with any other high priority operation that the FBI runs, whether it's CICT or we're talking about scamming and scam centers here. One, you have to drown and get online with your online covert employees and platforms, and we've increased funding. And we've also, what we've done strategically is move people out of Washington, D.C. on the intel analyst front and support staff front to places like Oklahoma. Actually, every single state across the country has received a plus up because of that. And what we've created is the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, which I know you're familiar with in reference. So what we're doing on the homeland is going out into the streets of America, on the online platforms in America, and shutting down those networks and shutting down the capability of AI to interfere. But I think the bigger term project, what we're doing overseas, that's the key to this. Right. The scam center compounds are largely located in Cambodia and Burma and on the Thai border. I've already engaged with the premiers of each and every one of those countries. We've done so to switch off access to the internet with those governments to make sure that those compounds, they're literal compounds that are being built, we can get into that in the classified center, that are fleecing Americans and senior citizens all the way from Southeast Asia because they are backed by the CCP to build those compounds because they know it's going to hurt everyday Americans. So us, which we have successfully already eliminated and scuttled, numerous compounds in Cambodia and Burma and Thailand, is the big picture, the big part of the lift overseas. What we're going to do is go into those countries and shut down every single scam center compound.
Which is very helpful. The amount of methamphetamine and fentanyl that have been seized coming across our border has been dramatic, and that has a real effect to what's actually coming at families in my state on it. What I'm interested in is how are you partnering with local law enforcement to continue to accelerate this process? What does that look like for FBI?
Absolutely, Senator. The counter-narcotic mission can't be complete without state and local law enforcement. So we are embedding more task force officers across the country on the specific counter-narcotics mission. We've also stood up with our interagency partners in Tucson, Arizona, the Southern Border Intelligence Center, specifically on the counter-narcotic mission, so that we can utilize the Department of War and interagency capabilities on the law enforcement front. That's why we seized enough fentanyl in 2025 to kill
한이
178
나이브님이
million
방송을
Americans. That's a 31%
종료하였습니다.
increase year over year.
참여해
And here's a
주셔서
statistic
감사합니다.
that everybody should be
그렇죠.
proud of. Opioid overdose deaths from last year dropped
고마웠어요.
20
미안해요.
points. 20 points from across the country. And in Oklahoma specifically, Senator, we seized enough kilograms of cocaine to include a 232% increase in the state of Oklahoma alone, and enough fentanyl to kill 500,000 Oklahomans. We can't
5시간
do that
17분
unless we have
했구만.
great police
744.
partnerships, which has been a priority of mine, which is why I've embedded
바이올린
police
피아노 라이브
officers here at
신청곡
headquarters
되죠.
from around the country to make sure we have that connectivity.
야,
And I've
근데
shortened
이거
the task force
스킵을
officer
누가 하는지
onboarding
몰라도
pipeline
아주
from
잘
1 to 2
하더라.
years to 90
유튜브도
days. We need
그렇고 장난이
We do.
아니야.
Director Ratcliffe, the annual
월요일,
threat
화요일,
assessment
목요일,
highlights
금요일,
this year,
토요일 오후 10시부터
Muslim Brotherhood
3시까지
in particular.
3시 37분인데
and calls out some of their
목요일
financial
자기개발
material support on
휴방
this.
라는 시청 바래요.
That may be
그래서
surprising to some
PM
folks here,
10시
but it's not surprising
한일
to
라이브
folks all
쇼
across the
우리
Middle
서
East
있다.
in the threat that the Muslim Brotherhood continues to pose to so many governments and entities across the world on that. How is the Muslim Brotherhood financing itself and its acts of terrorism? And is there something that we need to do here to be able to make sure that we're protecting Americans in the threat?
Senator, I don't think with regard to the Muslim Brotherhood abroad, we view that just as we do other proxies across the Middle East, the Houthis and other
야, 5분
groups.
넘었단다. 이거 먹고서
relate
먹고
to
다
you
했더니
that
다
the
뺏어
CIA
먹었어.
is very focused
자, 다시 조축하고 와야겠다.
on the counterterrorism front. You weren't here before. I said in the classified portion I would get into the CIA's success with regard to groups like the Muslim Brotherhood in a classified setting where I can share with you the impact that we're having. But and across the board with regard to terrorist groups and our counterterrorism activities, I can publicly characterize it as saying we've accomplished more in the last year than in the 4 years of the prior administration combined. So hopefully it gives you some measure of comfort about how we're approaching things and the effectiveness that we've had in the last year in that regard. And I look forward to getting into detail in the classified portion.
Look forward to that. Thank you. Senator Reid.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. The Washington Post reported earlier this week, in their words, the U.S. intelligence assessments say Iran's regime likely will remain in place for now, weakened but more hardline, with powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps security forces exerting greater control. Director Gabbard, do you stand by that reported intelligence assessment?
I don't stand by any leaked so-called intelligence to the media. I do stand by the
야,
intelligence
비창현 거리
community's
노래방
assessment that was
근인
included in
동네는
the
PM
annual threat
6시 와인데
assessment that speaks
하루
directly
전에
to this
했네.
issue that
2시간
as
20분
of this moment,
37초.
the regime maintains power
어디서 했어?
within Iran, even though they are vastly degraded on almost every front.
Do you think that the killing of the
스트리머에게
Ayatollah
수익에 후원되는
and
광고를
his wife
진행하고
and
계십니다.
other
야,
family
광고비도
members,
몇십 원
key
나오나
people,
봐.
contributed
뭐도
to
나오는지.
the picking of a
BJ
high-line successor?
상영입니다. 했습니다.
Senator, the intelligence
잠깐만 좀
community's
볼까요?
assessment
그대
has
정말
pointed
사랑했다
to
말해요.
a
라는
number
사실을
of different
그대에게
scenarios that went into play with the
좋은
selection of
사람이
the
되고
successor.
싶었어.
The details of that
영영
we can
자신은
discuss
못 본다
in
해도
closed hearing
아주
with
잘
regard
봐.
to the intelligence
보기 못 봐.
reporting.
그들을 위한 이 노래가
Regime
당신을 영원히
in Iran now trying to
사랑할 테니
the deceased Ayatollah as a martyr who should be followed, and does that help them consolidate support?
Senator, the Iranians are certainly using that as a call to action. The effects of that from an intelligence standpoint remain to be seen.
There is a tradition in Shia, though, to honor the martyrs. One of their greatest celebrations is the martyrdom of the grandson of
야, 나 요즘 글씨를 오자를 많이 쓰더라. 오탈자. 나 분명히 그런 글씨 안 썼는데 나중에 보니까는 이상한 글씨가 되고 있어. 유튜브 제목에도 이상하게 써놓고 그래. 아, 문제야. 그런 글자 쓴 게 아닌데 내 기억식하고 저기 타자하고 영접하는 거야. 읽어보면 참 재밌어. 무서워. 그래서 나도 참 이제 갈 때가 됐구나 하면서도 어쩔 수 있나? 있는 거 있다고 하니까 있어 있는 거지. 그러게 어느 사람이 내가 경비 실적에 누가 그러더라고. 저기 말씀을 좀 잘못하신 것 같은데요. 그때 제가 뭐라고 했는데 이렇게 얘기하시고 뭐 그런 얘기도 안 했는데 그래서 이거 어떻게 되냐 녹음기를 틀었지 녹음을 했지 내가 말하지 그랬더니 그 얘기 했어. 그런 걸 있었니? 분명히 그 얘기 안 했는데 이러면서 내가 이상하게 느껴보는 거야. 그래서 가끔은 그래서 맞춰보려고 그 기록을 해요. 근데 월통이 역시 딴 데가 있나 그럴 수도 있어. 눈동자 다르고 입하고 귀하고 전부 다 다른 신호가 되니까. 그래서 그럴 수도 있겠지. 그러면서 왜냐 이상한 짓을 당했으니까 그렇다는 거 아니겠어. 뭔가 있으니까 그 사람이 나처럼 이렇게 변해가는 거 그런 현상이 나오는 거 이해하면서 그걸 고쳐가려고 하는데 고칠 수는 없고 주의를 해야 되는데 주의도 안 돼요. 그걸 어떻게 뭐 집안대로 나오는 걸 아니 그렇게 되기도 하더라고. 그래서 내가 비디오 테이프가 하는 생각도 들어. 이상하게 편집당하고 있구나. 그런 생각도 하는 거라고. 혹시 누구는 약물 오구나명인지 뭐 과역인지 거시기 뭐 중독인지 그렇게 얘기하는데 다 맞는 얘기야. 어쨌든 누가 당했으니까 그런 현상이 나온다. 근데 내용밖에 얘기해 줄 필요 없어. 그게 뭐겠어? 인간이 가지고 놀고 있는 그런 약품들, 약물들 그런 내용밖에 더 없겠어? 그게 누구겠어? 같은 시기들이지.
Well, we talked about this before. In the classified session, what we can go into is that the Iranians are requesting intelligence.
야, 너희들 먹는 일반 음식들에게 그런 게 있겠어? 어디선가 만들어내는 그런 것들이지. 그럼 육준해봐. 술술술 부르고 술술술 이상한 소리 하고 부는 거. 뭐겠어? 어느 놈들의 놀이개야? 결국 다시 누군가를 만나서 우리 사랑 지원해도 행복했던 것만 이런 뜻으로 있어.
One of the aspects of this is the collateral effects, particularly in Russia and Ukraine.
Bye-bye.
We were just talking about Russia probably or possibly providing intelligence, maybe interfering or inflicting casualties on our forces.
최근에 봄이다.
Russia is also benefiting from the lifting of sanctions on their ability to sell oil throughout the world. I heard one estimate of a $20 billion surge in their potential revenues. Ukraine, on the other hand, is facing perhaps a disrupted supply chain of missiles and other equipment because they're being devoted to this operation. So, General Adams, can you just give me your impression of the effect of the battle on Russia and Ukraine at the moment, of this battle?
Well, from our collections, the effect of the epic fury on the Russian Ukrainian battle has been indirect, not direct. We do track very carefully what benefits or, as you alluded to, the collateral effects of what we're doing and how it impacts. There is a lot of, from both the Russians and the Chinese, observations of what we're doing and figuring out what they can learn from that. So I think that's a collateral effect as we expose what the joint force displays on the battlefield.
내 소원이 아이유 콘서트 가보는 게 소원이네.
I think we can talk in a little more detail as we move to the classified session, some of the things that we're collecting specifically about what those effects are.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you,
Senator Ossoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Before I ask you a few questions, I
야,
want to
내
call
저기는
everyone's
어디
attention
갔어?
again to this fundraising email signed by the President that Senator Kelly mentioned earlier, in which the President of the United States invites his campaign donors to, quote, claim your spot, join now to receive private national security briefings to his political donors, featuring a photo of the President at a dignified transfer ceremony with a flag-draped coffin of an American service member killed in action returning to their family. And the American people need to know that the President of the United States is fundraising for his political campaign and his PAC using images of American service members killed in action, and it's a disgrace. Now, Director Gabbard, I'd like to reground this in your core responsibilities. Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the President, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats, correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes?
Yes.
In the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct? And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the President.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there have been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, There was a
국민의원
quote imminent nuclear
제주도의
threat
3번
posed by the Iranian regime. Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to
here's
the
the
president
problem.
based on a volume
No,
of
it is
information
precisely
that he receives.
it is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing, where, as you noted in your opening testimony, quote, you represent the IC's assessment of threats. You are here to represent the IC's assessment of threats. That's a quote from your own opening statement. And so my question is, as you're here to present the IC's assessment of threats, was it the assessment of the intelligence community that, as the White House claimed on March 1st, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
Once again, Senator, the intelligence community has provided the inputs that make up this annual threat assessment.
You want
야,
to answer
오늘
me?
어디
The
가냐?
nature of the imminent threat that the president has
제주도
to make
어디
that
가냐?
determination based on a
안
collection
해?
of volume
You're here to be
information and
어저께
intelligence
왔어?
that he is provided
You're
with.
here to be
야,
timely,
이것도 에너지
objective,
없다, 야. 에너지가 배터리가
independent of
에너지가
political
없어.
considerations.
Exactly what I'm
그만
doing.
꺼야겠다, 야. 또
No, you're
좀-
evading a question because to provide a candid response to the committee would contradict a statement from the White House. Let me ask you about your presence in Fulton County on January 28th of this year. You were present at the FBI's raid on the Fulton County Elections Office on January 28th, correct?
I was present for part of the FBI exercising a warrant approved by a municipal judge.
Yes, and the FBI was there executing. The FBI was there executing that warrant to seize ballots and materials associated with the 2020 election. Correct?
Yes.
And are you aware that members of this committee have already opened inquiries into your election-related activities?
Yes.
And are you aware that your general counsel and deputy general counsel have already provided testimony to this
아니야,
committee
별거 다 한다, 야.
regarding those activities?
Yes.
야, 자동
On February 2nd, you sent
전장이요.
a letter to
나
Senator
설치를
Warren
아직도
regarding your
못했어.
presence at the
어떻게
raid.
할지
Was
몰라.
that letter accurate?
아유.
I don't recall the exact
여러
date.
번
but
시도했는데
my
안 되더라구나.
signature was accurate.
이상하게.
You stated in the letter that your presence at the raid
누가
was,
뭔지
quote,
몰라.
requested by the president, correct?
Yes.
When did the president request your presence at the raid?
The day of the raid, the warrant execution commenced.
The day of the raid.
Yes.
He called you on the phone?
I'm not going to disclose how the message was delivered, but it was a request from the president and his administration to go and help oversee this warrant being executed along with the deputy director of the FBI.
Is it your
and
role
to
to
thank
oversee-
the FBI agents who were conducting
Is it
this
your
warrant.
role to oversee the execution of criminal warrants?
It is my role, based on statute that Congress has passed, to have oversight over election security, to include counterintelligence.
But you said you oversaw the raid, correct? You just testified you oversaw the raid?
Portions of it.
Okay. Did you handle any ballots or election-related materials?
No.
You were inside an FBI evidence truck, correct? You were photographed inside an FBI
It
evidence
was an
truck.
empty truck, yes.
The president stated, quote, you looked at
Senator's time is
votes that
expired.
wanted to be checked out.
The
Is that
senator's
accurate?
time is expired.
Did you look at votes as the president
Senator
stated?
Ossoff, your time is expired.
You respond
can
for the
have
record?
No, she cannot respond
No,
because
for the record, will the director please respond for the record to that question? Is my
I'm happy
question.
to respond to questions for the record.
Thank you, Director Gabbard.
Thank you. Vice Chairman?
야, 신지도 열심히 하네. 하루 전에 무달 콩물 먹방 목포 샌드에서.
in the closed setting, but I am very disappointed. This is the only one time a year the public gets to hear from you guys in this kind of setting. And the fact that we have repeated
나 오늘
public
쌀방이야.
reporting,
내일은
including a major story in the Wall Street
휴방이야.
Journal today about China and
유다공도
Russia
열심히 하네.
assisting Iran, which seems obvious and evident. And none of you would confirm that publicly, I think, doesn't give the American people the full
야,
challenges
많이
of this war.
바뀌었나?
I would add what I said earlier that
열심히 해주는 아이.
media is not a classification authority, but certainly sounds like something Russia and China would do and that have done for decades in the past to Americans. To wrap up a little business here before we adjourn the open session, we will reconvene in 30 minutes in our usual location for the closed session. That's at
은유와도
12:56
저기
promptly.
가야.
I do want to
2025년
note,
1월
for
11일,
the record, that Senator Young
26년
cannot
1월
join us. He
11일.
is at Dover Air Force Base for the dignified transfer of remains for one of our
26년 1월
fallen heroes,
11일까지만
Hoosier.
있네.
And I would invite
25년도
everyone to
하고.
join Senator Young in praying for the family and friends of that soldier and all the soldiers who have given their life in the defense of our freedom and security. General Hartman, I want to again acknowledge you, given your impending retirement, since this is your last appearance for the committee. I'm sure you hope, and I'm sure that the thing you'll miss most about your long career in uniform is testifying before Congress. I remind members that questions for the record will be due by the close of business on Friday, March 20, and the audience will remain seated for a moment so that our witnesses and members may exit and proceed promptly to the closed session. This open session is adjourned. The National Security Agency and Commander of U.S. Cyber Command, Lieutenant General William Hartman, and the DIE Director, Lieutenant General James Adams. Thank you all for your appearance today and for your service. I also want to offer a special thanks to General Hartman, who is about to enter a well-earned and well-deserved retirement. General, on behalf of the committee, thank you for your lifetime of service to our nation. I'd first like to take this opportunity to commend the thousands of men and women in our intelligence agencies whom our witnesses represent. Our intelligence professionals are second to none. Because of their service, their dedication, and their sacrifice, Americans are safer at home and around the world. But because of the nature of their work, grateful Americans don't buy their lunch at restaurants or even have a chance to say thank you. So on their behalf, let me simply say thank you. I want to make two basic points this morning. First, the world is always a dangerous place, especially for America. But thanks to your agencies, President Trump's leadership, the world isn't quite as dangerous for Americans as it was a year ago. Thanks to the efforts of our military and intelligence personnel, including my fellow Arkansans who are now serving in the Middle East, the Iranian revolutionary regime that terrorized the world for 47 years is finally knocked on its back foot. Last summer, we devastated Iran's nuclear facilities. In recent weeks, we've eliminated Iran's top leadership, hauled its military, sunk its navy, destroyed its missiles, neutered its proxies, and left its economy reeling. After 47 years of indecision and timidity, America has finally put our foot down. I'm also pleased to report that things have improved a lot in our own backyard now that Venezuela's illegitimate communist dictator, Nicolas Maduro, is rotting in a New York prison. Only the United States could execute a military and intelligence operation of this difficulty without a single American life lost. Our military is awesome, but these operations wouldn't have succeeded, and they probably wouldn't have even been tried without timely, accurate, and fact-based intelligence from your agencies. These successful operations are a testament to our intelligence professionals' ability to expose and uncover critical details about America's enemies. So let this be a warning to those who wish America harm. We leave no stone unturned, and there's no one or no thing close to you that might not betray you. Today's hearing is an opportunity for the American people to hear an unvarnished and unbiased account of the remaining threats we face, from communist China, North Korea, and Russia to the east to narco-terrorist cartels here at home. These threats truly do span the globe. And for my second point, your agencies have improved over the last year thanks to reforms that has gotten them back to basics. Of course, my 2 points are related. When our intelligence agencies return to their core mission, stealing the secrets of our adversaries to deliver timely and needful intelligence, America is safer for it. These efforts are already bearing fruit. For example, last year, the CIA increased its foreign intelligence reporting by 25%. This year, the CIA is on track to hire and deploy more officers than at any point in the last quarter century. While I'm greatly encouraged by the progress, more remains to be done. We must always equip our intelligence personnel with the tools they need to do their jobs well and execute their missions. That's why I fully support President Trump's request for a clean reauthorization of FISA Section 702. And it's why I expect a healthy intelligence budget request in the administration's supplemental appropriations request to fund operations against Iran and dark
그놈
group
자식이
terrorists.
바지 속 위로
No doubt
올라와서
our military needs
거시길
supplemental funding,
하다가 내려갔어.
but our intelligence agencies need it just as badly. Moreover, I urge each of you to continue to make personnel and institutional reforms that will cement these changes and foreclose a return in the future to bureaucratic bloat, political bias, and excessive caution within your services. When I became chairman, I promised real reform across the entire intelligence community. Our first Intelligence Authorization Act set the foundation for a more efficient intelligence community by, for example, reorganizing the ODNI, improving the security of CIA installations, and directing resources towards foreign intelligence collection and covert action. This year, I look forward to going further, namely by growing our cadre of collectors, making generational investments in core capabilities, providing new capabilities to defend our space assets, and further codifying reforms to guard against any future return of bloated and biased bureaucracy. I look forward to working with you towards these ends. I now recognize the Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me also offer a good morning to our witnesses. Let me also join you, Mr. Chairman, and begin by thanking literally the tens of thousands of men and women across America's intelligence community who work every day to keep our country safe. Their work is by necessity secret. That is the nature of intelligence. But that is also why hearings like this one matter so much. Over the past year, we have seen a series of developments that raise serious concerns about the erosion of safeguards that protect both our democracy and our security. And nowhere is that more worrying than when it comes to the integrity of our elections. For decades now, our intelligence community has warned that foreign adversaries, including Russia, China, and Iran, are actively seeking to shape the outcome of American elections. These efforts have included cyber intrusions, disinformation campaigns, and covert influence operations designed to divide Americans and undermine our confidence in our democratic institutions. Protecting our elections from these threats should be one of the intelligence community's highest priorities. The DNI is supposed to be coordinating intelligence on foreign election interference, warning the American people about adversaries seeking to undermine our democracy, ensuring that federal, state, and local officials have the information they need. Congress even required the creation of a foreign malign influence center inside the office of the DNI to coordinate the intelligence community's response to foreign election interference and ensure that these threats are properly shared across the government. That is the mission Congress assigned to the DNI. But while foreign adversaries are actively probing our democratic institutions, the DNI has eliminated the Foreign Malign Influence Center and does not have a designated official coordinating the response to election threats. And for months, the committee has repeatedly requested briefings from the IC, briefings that are required by law on legitimate foreign threats to the midterms. We have received no response. Now that silence, I believe, should concern every member of the committee because it clearly demonstrates the DNI is not interested in protecting American democracy by combating foreign influence. Instead, unfortunately, we've seen the DNI involve herself in purely domestic matters. Last month, we saw Director Gabbard personally participate in a law enforcement raid to seize election ballots and voting machine records in Fulton County, Georgia. A raid tied to an election that the president lost 6 years ago. When the warrant supporting the raid was unsealed, it showed something deeply troubling. There was no foreign connection to justify the involvement of our nation's top spy. Instead, the predicate for the warrant was a slop of debunked conspiracy theories that had already been rejected repeatedly by courts, by independent investigators, and even by Georgia's own Republican Secretary of State. Yet the nation's top intelligence official was personally involved in this operation. This raises one very serious question. If the intelligence community is not being deployed to mobilize against foreign threats, why is it being deployed at all on a domestic issue? The DNI's appearance at this raid, as well as their involvement in seizing voting machines from Puerto Rico, suggests something that should also alarm every American. I believe an organized effort to misuse her national security powers to interfere in domestic politics and potentially provide a pretext for the president's unconstitutional efforts to seize control of the upcoming elections. And don't take my word for it. The president has repeatedly pushed for the nationalization of our elections, calling for federal government to override the state election laws and, quote, take over voting while continuing to make false statements about election fraud. And we have heard troubling rhetoric from senior officials that reinforce these concerns. As former Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said publicly, we've been, and this is a quote, we've been proactive trying to make sure we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country. At the same time, the administration has brought into government individuals promoting conspiracy theories about our elections. The so-called White House Director of Election Security and Integrity, Kurt Olson, played a key role in efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Now Mr. Olson holds a position inside the federal government with the authority to refer criminal investigations and access our most sensitive security information, all supposedly doing his witch hunts around elections. As a matter of fact, according to the court filings, he helped trigger the FBI seizure of the ballots in Fulton County. So it's worth asking, why is someone whose career has been devoted to undermining the legitimate results of a democratic election now operating from inside the federal government with access to law enforcement and intelligence authorities? What exactly has he been empowered to do? As members of our committee know, this committee was created in the aftermath of the unconstitutional abuses exposed after Watergate. The guardrails have been built around our intelligence and law enforcement agencies over the past several decades exist for a reason. Without them, America begins to look more like adversaries emphasized in this year's annual threat assessment: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and less like a democracy. Confronting these very clear and present threats to American security requires experienced professionals in intelligence agencies that are focused squarely on their mission. Instead, over the past year, we've seen actions that only serve to weaken them. Politically motivated purges at the FBI has resulted in the exodus of hundreds of agents and the reassignments of hundreds more from key national security areas like counterintelligence, counterterrorism, and cyber, and where they've been redeployed to, immigration enforcement. In one troubling case, agents working on a task force focused on threats from Iran, clearly something that's pretty damn important right now, were dismissed because they had previously participated in the investigation of the president's mishandling of classified information. Elsewhere, the Bureau's budget is being slashed. Last year, it cut over $500 million, with the largest decreases from cyber, counterterrorism, and counterespionage. And the remaining scarce resources are being squandered on things like a $60 million jet for the director's personal travel so he can go golfing in Scotland, partying with athletes in Milan. In fact, according to a whistleblower account, those flights became so frequent they even delayed the Bureau's response to major incidents like the Charlie Kirk assassination or shooting at Brown University. Credible reports also indicate that highly trained FBI agents from his elite SWAT units have been reassigned to chauffeur his girlfriend. An unprecedented use of personnel whose training are actually intended for hunting violent criminals and neutralizing terrorists. Unfortunately, this dysfunction has not been limited to the FBI. Both the National Security Agency and the Defense and Intelligence Agency, and this is no reflection on the two gentlemen sitting in front of us, were both left leaderless for months after the president fired their directors. One at the behest of a 9/11 conspiracy theorist, and the other for providing a fact-based assessment that contradicted the president's claims about obliterating Iran's nuclear program. Clearly, if the program had been truly obliterated, the president wouldn't be bombing again right now. And again, more than 1/3 of the personnel at CISA, created by Congress to protect critical infrastructure like power, water, and election systems, have been forced out. That seems like a real mistake as we still grapple with the intrusion called Typhoon and the recent Iranian cyber attack on Stryker. And we are now seeing in real time the cost to the State Department. Thousands of American citizens were trapped in a literal war zone with little assistance from their own government. For a time, those calling the State Department hotline for assistance were greeted with a pre-recorded message that said, quote, "Please do not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation." This was a foreseeable security crisis. When you start a war of choice, when there was no imminent threat, you should be able to prepare to make sure you get Americans out of the war zone. That same attitude, pushing some of our closest friends into the arms of our most capable foes, has profound consequences. Two of our most significant allies, Canada and the UK, are currently working to sign trade deals with China because they no longer believe the United States is a dependable partner. That's a remarkable statement in 2026. And in the president's war of choice with Iran, a war that has already killed 13 service members, cost Americans, taxpayers, billions of dollars, and scrambled supply chains from oil to fertilizer to aluminum, nobody answered the call when the president asked our allies to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. As the president's own counterterrorism chief acknowledged in his resignation yesterday, Iran posed no imminent threat to the United States. Now, unfortunately, our allies have been alienated and distracted by the administration's unilateral threats like invading Greenland. And the result is clear. Americans have been left more exposed in an already dangerous conflict. Now, what I just outlined is quite a list. And it's a partial one, in fact. Matter of fact, we've got a full list we'd like to share with all the press. So what does this all mean? It matters because I believe the warnings contained in this year's annual threat assessment. I believe our IC when they say the global security environment is becoming more complex and that armed conflict is becoming more global. And I also agree with the assessment when it says that to succeed, we must think prudently and prioritize our efforts. On the topic of the annual threat assessment, I want to close where I began by noting that since the first time since 2017, in the aftermath of Russia's intervention in our 2016 elections, the annual threat assessment includes nothing about adversary attempts to influence American elections. Now, I don't believe this omission means that the threat has disappeared. It means that the intelligence community is no longer being allowed to speak honestly about it. And it raises serious questions. And I will be asking about your priorities, Director Gabbard, in terms of what you're choosing to prioritize instead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Before we go to the witnesses, now that we have a critical mass of members, I would simply like to remind members that we will handle questions as we did last year, seniority at the time of the gavel, and alternating between Democrats and Republicans. We'll have one round of questions, 7 minutes per round. I will not entertain questions after 7-minute time has expired. Furthermore, I expect to convene the closed session in our usual location promptly 30 minutes after the open session begins. Director Gabbard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Cotton, Vice Chair Warner, members of the committee, good morning. I'm here today to present the 2026 Annual Threat Assessment, joined by the directors of the CIA, FBI, DIA, and NSA. Before I continue, on behalf of the intelligence community, I want to extend our thanks to General Hartman for his 37 years of service in uniform and closing out his 37 years with tremendous leadership of the NSA. This briefing is being provided in accordance with ODNI statutory responsibility. I'd like to remind those who are watching what I am briefing here today conveys the intelligence community's assessment of the threats facing U.S. citizens, our homeland, and our interests, not my personal views or opinions. In this assessment, we're following the structure of priorities that were laid out in the President's national security strategy, starting with threats to our homeland and then shifting to global risks. The defense of our homeland is of the utmost importance to the American people, and efforts by this administration have shown over the last year the results of bolstering homeland defense in the security of the American people. For example, the strict enforcement of U.S. policies at the U.S.-Mexico border and regionally have served as a deterrent, drastically reducing illegal immigration. Based on Customs and Border Patrol data, January 2026's monthly encounters are down 83.8% compared to January 2025. Encounters declined 79% compared to 2024. The drivers of migration are likely to continue. Potential worsening instability in countries like Cuba and Haiti risk triggering migration surges, and smugglers who have long operated as transnational criminal organizations continue to view chaos as an opportunity for profit and will continue to look to profit from illegal immigration flows. These transnational criminal organizations continue to pose a daily and direct threat to the health and safety of millions of U.S. citizens, primarily and directly by producing and trafficking in illegal drugs. Under President Trump's leadership, fentanyl overdose deaths have seen a 30% decrease from September 2024 to September 2025. President Trump's aggressive efforts to more directly and actively target these transnational criminal organizations and reduce the inflow of fentanyl precursors has already had a significant impact, which is likely to continue. We've seen fentanyl potency also decrease, likely due to disruptions to the production supply chain. U.S. efforts to work with China and India to halt the flow of fentanyl precursor chemicals to North America are demonstrating some improvement, but there is more work to be done, as sadly, there are still tens of thousands of fentanyl-related deaths in America every year. Mexico-based TCOs like the Sinaloa cartel and Jalisco New Generation cartel dominate the production and smuggling of fentanyl, heroin, meth, and cocaine into the United States. Colombia-based DCOs and illegal armed groups like the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia and the National Liberation Army are responsible for producing and trafficking large volumes of cocaine to the U.S. and European markets, with now some indicators of attempts to expand their market to the Asia-Pacific region. Colombia remains the world's largest producer of cocaine, and Colombian criminal groups have expanded their trafficking relationships with neighboring Ecuadorian and Brazilian gangs. As you know, MS-13 is well established in cells within the United States and uses violence to intimidate the Salvadoran diaspora, engaging in murder, extortion, retail drug trafficking, firearms offenses, and prostitution, fueling increased violence and instability. These and other TCOs continue to present a very tangible and individualized risk of violent crime to everyday Americans and contribute to regional instability. As the president increases his focus on counter-drug and counter-cartel pressures, they are likely to seek ways to try to adapt their operations, including shifting production locations and trafficking routes and methods. The United States continues to face a complex and evolving threat landscape with a geographically diverse set of Islamist terrorist actors seeking to propagate their ideology globally and harm Americans, even as Al-Qaeda and ISIS remain weaker today than they were at their respective peaks. The spread of Islamist ideology, in some cases led by individuals and organizations associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, poses a fundamental threat to freedom and the foundational principles that underpin Western civilization. Islamist groups and individuals use this ideology for recruiting and financial support for terrorist groups and individuals around the world, and to advance their political objectives of establishing an Islamist caliphate which governs based on Sharia. There are increasing examples of this in various European countries, and President Trump's designation of certain Muslim Brotherhood chapters as foreign terrorist organizations is a mechanism to secure Americans against this threat. In response to setbacks to their capabilities of conducting large-scale complex attacks, Islamist terrorist groups have shifted toward focusing on executing information operations to spread propaganda and inspire or enable individuals located in or with access to the West. U.S. counterterrorism efforts, primarily in Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, and Syria in 2025, were instrumental in removing key terrorist leaders and operatives, degrading the ability of Al-Qaeda and ISIS to quickly reconstitute its leadership and plan large-scale attacks against the homeland and U.S. interests abroad. Strict U.S. border enforcement measures and increased deportations of individuals with suspected links to Islamist terrorists have reduced access to the homeland and removed some potential sources of future terrorist attacks. Since January, U.S. officials have only had a handful of encounters at our borders with individuals associated with terrorist groups. This is a positive trend. However, our interagency coordinated efforts to continue to identify, locate, and remove known or suspected terrorists who may already be in the United States continues with vigilance. In 2025, there were at least 3 Islamist terrorist attacks in the United States. Law enforcement disrupted at least 15 U.S.-based Islamist terrorist plotters. Roughly half of last year's disrupted plotters had some online contact with Islamist terrorists inspired by Islamist foreign terrorist organizations abroad. For example, in the recent attempt to attack a synagogue in Michigan, the shooter had familial ties to a Hezbollah leader. Al-Qaeda and ISIS pose the biggest threat to U.S. interests overseas, in parts of Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia, where these groups operate. In the Middle East, AQAP in Yemen, ISIS-K in South Asia, and ISIS in Syria are among the most likely groups conducting external plotting. ISIS in Syria is likely seeking to rebuild its ranks, expand support networks, and solicit funds by re-engaging with and recruiting from the likely hundreds of ISIS detainees and thousands of ISIS-linked women and children who were either released or escaped from prisons and displaced person camps that were previously run by the Syrian Democratic Forces in northeast Syria. Meanwhile, state actors present a risk broader in scope by seeking new capabilities in kinetic and cyber warfare. The United States' secure nuclear deterrent continues to ensure
남들 다른 사람들 방송을 틀어놓으면 안 된다. 저작권이 여러 가지가 있으니까 하지 마라. 그리고 이렇게 또 외국에서 이렇게 공무원들이 보고하는 거 있잖아.
Advanced for traditional missile delivery systems with nuclear and conventional payloads that put our homeland within range. The IC assesses that threats to the homeland will expand collectively to more than 16,000 missiles by 2035, from the current assessed figure of more than 3,000 missiles.
오늘은 저기 스트리머 방송국이 그 숲이라고 해서 그 미르 시스템즈 미르 공원이라고 좀 미르 시스템즈 그거 그 저기 거시기에 있는 거 거시기에 있는 거 판교 거기 있는 거 맨날 가는 데 있잖아. 내가 가는 게 아니라 다른 사람들이 가는데 거기 바로 근처에 있어. 야, 그거 숲 그거 그 사무실이 많아. 근데 여기는 8층이라고 하거든. 그 앞에 없는 건물, 그 숲 건물 8층이라는데 사무실이 엄청 많아갖고 거기 가면 온주도 숲이야. 그래서 있어보는 거야. 또 게임 거기 미르 시스템 게임 협찬했던 곳 그 1000m에서 그 뒤쪽으로 가고 600m 그 1000m 가니까 거기 게임 회사 협력 회사 근데 그 게임에서 나중에 리퍼블릭이라고 있더라. 데모크라시는 없고 리퍼블릭이 결론 그 파트너십으로 있더라고 또. 그 회사는 뭔지 몰라도 연관성이 뭐 조금이라도 있겠지. 그러니까 누군가 아줌마이들이 그것도 섭외를 하는 건지 몰라도 이 대한민국 참 복잡해요. 그 대한민국 사람들이 모두가 열심히 돈 벌려고 뛰어다니고 있구나. 그러게 오직하면 돈 벌려고. 그래서 물불 안 가리고 살고 있구나. 그래 봐야지. 정의 사제는 어디 갔죠? 없나 봐, 대한민국에. 정의 사도는 어디 갔는지 황금박쥐 안 보여? 황금박쥐 죽었다 깨어났어. 죽었다 깨어났는데 정의 사도가 어디 갔어? 깨워도 안 일어나. 그냥 다 다이다이 해갖고. 네, 그래서 이렇게 해서 있는데요. 있어요. 야, 이게 유로야. 공짜가 아니야. 스마트 미러 그거 저기 하니까 공짜가 아니라 저기 있더라고. 그 월 얼마 연 얼마 하듯이 공짜가 아니라 저기 있더라고. 그 월 얼마 연 얼마 하듯이 공짜가 아니라 저기 있더라고. 그 월 얼마 연 얼마 하듯이 공짜가 아니라 저기 있더라고. 그 월 얼마 연 얼마 하듯이 공짜가 아니라 저기 있더라고. 그 월 얼마 연 얼마 하듯이 공짜가 아니라 저기. 자, 이거 여덟 곳이라는데, 어딘지 모르겠더라. 10곳이잖아. 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷, 다, 일곱, 여덟, 아홉, 10개만 밖에 안 되잖아. 8개 어디 갔어? 모르지. 여기는 저 민주당의 저기 있잖아 아까 그 사람한테 팡팡 그러면서 저희 법무부 같은 캘리포니아 근데 저 중공 저기하고 연관된 그 사람한테 뭘 저기 얘기해 갖고 그래서 그랬다고 하는데 정확하게는 F타임 바이 여러 가지도 있지만 하여간 여러 가지 리스크가 많은가 봐. 리스크 없는 데가 어디냐. 국가가 정책을 바뀜으로써 처음 미국이 들고서 국가를 위해서 그쪽 방향으로 전진 앞으로 했던 그런 시대가 있었는데 하면서 있어 봐야지. 대한민국도 마찬가지 아니야? 빨갱이 나라로 가자 그러니까는 처음부 터 빨갱이 나라로 가고 그러는 거 지구촌 사회에서 그러면서 있는 다 문제가 되는 거야. 그러니까 내 문제가 네 문제가 할 것 없이 그 개인주의 대한민국 헌법에서 니만 아니면 됐어. 그러고 있는 내용이 있을 수가 있어. 뽕마담 또 봤어요. 오늘은 어디 갔어? 20시간 전에 했대.
연어와 술이 반입된 것에 대해서 조사하신 게 맞으시고요. 김성수
연어와 저기라는데 얘는 저기 수원지검인가 봐. 그 왜 내가 저기 보안각서 쓸 적에 거기 갔잖아. 보안. 그래 그 뒤쪽에 그 연어와 뭐 어쩌고 떠드는데 맨 처음에 연어가 아니었을 것 같은 느낌이지. 그 회 갖고 다니는 애들 그 뭐하는 애들이야. 그 남자아이가 저기 거시기 다 뭐 이렇게 올라가는 거 있던데 연어인지 몰랐지. 다른 건 줄 알았어 난. 몰라. 그 시간대가 아니라 회 갖고 가기 갔어. 회 가지고 가기 들고 올라가게 갔더라. 아, 올라갔는데 뭔지 몰라도 연어 같은 생각은 안 했지. 일반적으로 그 앞에 횟집 있잖아, 엄마. 그 앞에 횟집이 있어. 그 수원 경찰서인가 아니지, 무슨 어디야? 그 왜 거시기 보안 쪽에 하는 데 있잖아. 검찰청은 아닌 것 같던데. 거기 아니었어? 난 거기서 그런데 난 검찰은 모르지. 거기 가니까는 뭐 이렇게 지문도 확인하고 그러던데 왜 지문을 확인하는지 몰라도 그거 좀 찍어보자고 해서 신원조회 하는지 찍어보고 이거 나중에 경지사고문을 넣을까 그러고 별소리 다 하더라고만들 이거 여자아이들 남자아이들 그 새끼들 우르르해갖고 그냥 하자는 대로 다 했지 뭐. 애들 하자는 대로. 아이고 별거 다 했어요. 저 서수원 가니까 눈알 검사 하자고 하고 DNA 검 벌짓을 다 하더라. 지분 검사뿐만 아니라. 야, 이놈의 새끼들인걸 뭘 그렇게 궁금한 게 이렇게 많아갖고. 그래서 홍채 검사까지 했어. 야, 아이고 더러운 새끼다. 대한민국 사회가 이 정도야. 70일짜리 안에 얻자고 갔더니만 별짓을 다 시키다. 이게 데이터 안에 얼마씩 팔아먹고 있는지 몰라도 대단해. 대한민국이 과관이야, 가이가. 범죄의 도시지, 한마디 짓이야. 알게 모르게 다 범죄자, 간첩들 그러면서 살고 있어. 에이구, 새끼들. 다 쓸어버려야 되는데 전부가 그 모양이고 범죄단지 소속이니까 대한민국 자체가 아이 그걸 우죽했을까. 간첩을 잡지 않고 엉뚱한 사람이는 잡아다니고 이런 게 대한민국 사회라고 하는 거다. 법대가 모르니까 간첩을 안 잡아. 못 잡는 거야? 간첩하고 같이 공주하고 있어? 이게 현실이라고 하는 거다. 아휴, 언제 정신 차리고 언제 바르게 될지 알 수가 없어요. 야, 신나이가 몰고 가네? 아니면 말어. 똘똘한 생각을 가지면은, 그건 아니야. 야, 4% 남았다. 안녕. 아이고. 대단해. 4% 남았어, 4%. 대한민국 문제가 많아.
미국 시애틀의 한
바이바이.